Hello everyone and welcome back to Shelly's Millions. In today's video, I want to cover 3 topics. I want to cover how to talk to your employer if you're unable to return at this time because you don't have childcare or your schools are closed. I also want to talk about what to expect from the EDD if you're able to continue collecting unemployment if you have to decline work because you don't have childcare or the schools are closed. And third, I want to talk to you guys about the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which may provide additional resources if you're struggling with returning to work due to lack of childcare. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, as well as sharing this video with anyone that might find it useful. Doing that at the beginning of the video, make sure that you won't forget, and it really helps out my channel, so I appreciate that so much. I want to remind everyone I'm not a professional, I'm just someone going through the EDD process for the first time myself, so please make sure to do your own follow-up research on the topics that I'm covering in today's video. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is how to talk to your employer if you are unable to accept an offer to return to work because your child's school hasn't reopened or you don't have childcare available to you right now. If possible, you want to try and send an email so that you have a written trail of your communication. I always recommend that. Make sure to keep it professional and make sure to state exactly what the case is. You don't want your employer to think that you don't ever want to go back. You just want them to know that right now you're not able to return because you don't have childcare. So if it were me, I would say something like this in email. I appreciate the offer to return to work. Right now, due to coronavirus, I am unable to find childcare because my regular childcare provider is closed. I want to make it clear that I want to return to my job as soon as I'm able to find adequate childcare. So you just really want to make sure that your employer understands that when you say I can't come back because I don't have childcare, that they know that that doesn't mean I can't come back ever because of childcare. It just means I can't come back right now because I don't have childcare. You don't want your employer to misinterpret what you're saying and then notify the EDD that you declined work. Okay, so the second thing I'm going to do, of course, is read right from the EDD FAQ. And as per usual, the wording is pretty vague. They use words like may and can because they are going to look at everything on a case-by-case basis. So you might be able to still collect unemployment benefits if you have to decline work due to lack of childcare, but they're going to look at it on a case-by-case basis. And of course, when they need to do that, when they need to set up the phone interviews, there's always the possibility that that could delay you receiving your unemployment benefits. Even though that could cause a delay, usually once they get the issue cleared up, they do provide retroactive payments to you. But there's always the chance that when they review your situation on that case-by-case basis, that they will determine that you're not eligible for continued unemployment benefits. So you want to be really careful with this, but here's what the EDD FAQ has to say about it. And of course, I'll be reading that for you right now. Okay, so on the EDD FAQ page, due to coronavirus, it says school closures and childcare. Would I qualify for benefits if my child's school shuts down and I have to miss work to care for that child who is not ill? And here we go. Here's the response. You may be eligible for unemployment benefits. Our EDD representatives will determine eligibility on a case-by-case basis by scheduling a phone interview with you. For example, you may be eligible for unemployment benefits if your employer has temporarily allowed you to work less than full-time hours due to your childcare situation. In such case, you may be eligible for reduced benefits based on the amount of your weekly earnings, as long as you meet all other eligibility requirements. The EDD will contact you and your employer for information to determine your eligibility. So again, that's why you want to make really clear to your employer that you do want to come back, and it's only the lack of childcare right now that is allowing you to decline that offer. The second scenario covered on the EDD FAQ for coronavirus is as follows. Can I collect benefits if my child's school shuts down and I have to stay home to care for my child if I'm not currently employed, or I had to quit work because of my child care needs? And how the EDD answers that one is as follows. You may be eligible for unemployment benefits. Our EDD representatives will determine eligibility on a case-by-case basis by scheduling a phone interview with you. Okay, and now I want to talk to you about the last thing that was added in the CARES Act because of coronavirus, and that is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, Employee Paid Leave Rights. And of course, I'm going to be linking both the EDD FAQ and this section from the DOL, Department of Labor, in the description down below so that you can follow up and read that if you'd like to. Okay, and so here's what the Families First Coronavirus Response Act has to say. Now, this is sometimes referred to as the Families First Act or the FFCRA. So if you want to Google more information about that, that's sometimes how it's referred to. What the Families First Act does is for companies with fewer than 500 employees, they're required to actually give you some additional time off. And here's how that's going to work. So if your company has less than 500 employees, and it's sometimes hard to know that, like I always think I work for a small company, and I do, and I know a lot of people. We are a national company and we have over 50 locations. Each of those 50 locations probably has around 10 employees. The location I work for has a few more, but since we have over 50 locations, even at 10 employees, that would put us right at 500. And then once you add in our corporate office support staff and locations that are slightly bigger, we come in at above the 500, which would require us to participate in this program. Additionally, companies with fewer than 50 employees may not have to participate in this program either if they're able to prove that participating would put the company in a financial hardship. So you're going to need to talk to your employer to find out if they are one of the companies that is required to offer this benefit. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act, FFCRA or ACT, requires certain employers to provide employees with paid sick leave or expanded family and medical leave for specified reasons related to COVID-19. The Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division, WHD, administers and enforces the new law's paid leave requirements. These provisions will apply from the effective date through December 31st, 2020. Generally, the Act provides that employees of covered employers are eligible for 2 weeks up to 80 hours of paid sick leave at the employee's regular rate of pay where the employee is unable to work because the employee is quarantined, pursuant to federal, state, or local government order or advice of a health care provider, and or experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and seeking a medical diagnosis, or 2 weeks up to 80 hours of paid sick leave at 2/3 the employee's regular rate of pay because the employee is unable to work because of a bona fide need to care for an individual subject to quarantine, pursuant to federal, state, or local government order or advice of a healthcare provider, or to care for a child under 18 years of age whose school or child care provider is closed or unavailable for reasons to COVID-19, and or the employee is experiencing a substantially similar condition as specified by the Secretary of Health and Human Services in consultation with the Secretaries of the Treasury and Labor, and up to an additional 10 weeks of paid expanded family and medical leave at 2/3 the employee's regular rate of pay, where an employee who has been employed for at least 30 calendar days is unable to work due to a bona fide need for leave to care for a child whose school or child care provider is closed or unavailable for reasons related to COVID-19. Covered employers. The paid sick leave and expanded family medical leave provisions of the FFCRA apply to certain public employers and private employers with fewer than 500 employees. Most employees of the federal government are covered by Title II of the Family and Medical Leave Act, which was not amended by this act, and are therefore not covered by the expanded family and medical leave provisions of the FFCRA. However, federal employees covered by Title II of the Family and Medical Leave Act are covered by the sick leave provision. Small businesses with fewer than 50 employees may qualify for exemption from the requirement to provide leave due to school closings or child care unavailability if the leave requirements would jeopardize the viability of the business as a going concern. Eligible employees. All employees of covered employers are eligible for 2 weeks of paid sick time for specified reasons related to COVID-19. Employees employed for at least 30 days are eligible for up to an additional 10 weeks of paid family leave to care for a child under certain circumstances related to COVID-19. Notice, where leave is foreseeable, an employee should provide notice of leave to the employer as is practicable. After the first workday of paid sick time, an employer may require employees to follow reasonable notice procedures in order to continue receiving paid sick time. Qualifying reasons for leave. Under the FFCRA, an employee qualifies for paid sick time if the employee is unable to work or unable to telework due to a need for leave because the employee, 1, is subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to COVID-19. 2, has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine related to COVID-19. 3, is experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and is seeking a medical diagnosis. 4, is caring for an individual subject to an order described in 1 or self-quarantine as described in 2. 5, is caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed or child care provider is unavailable for reasons related to COVID-19, or 6, is experiencing any other substantially similar condition specified by the Secretary of Health and Human Services in consultation with the Secretaries of Labor and Treasury. Under the FFCRA, an employee qualifies for expanded family leave if the employee is caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed or child care provider is unavailable for reasons related to COVID-19. Okay, and now we're still reading that same article, and it talks about the duration of leave. For reasons 1 through 4 and 6, a full-time employee is eligible for 80 hours of leave, and a part-time employee is eligible for the number of hours of leave that the employee works on average over a 2-week period. For reason 5, a full-time employee is eligible for up to 12 weeks of leave, 2 weeks of paid sick leave, followed by up to 10 weeks of paid expanded family and medical leave at 40 hours a week. And a part-time employee is eligible for leave for the number of hours that employee is normally scheduled to work over that period. For reason 5, a full-time employee is eligible for up to 12 weeks of leave, 2 weeks of paid sick leave, followed by up to 10 weeks of paid expanded and family medical leave. At 40 hours a week, and a part-time employee is eligible for leave for the number of hours that the employee is normally scheduled to work over that period. Calculation of pay. For reasons of 1, 2, or 3, employees taking leave are entitled to pay at either their regular rate or the applicable minimum wage, whichever is higher, up to $511 per day and $5,110 in the aggregate over a 2-week period. For leave reasons 4 or 6, employees taking leave are entitled to pay at 2/3 their regular rate or 2/3 the applicable minimum wage, whichever is higher, up to $200 a day and $2,000 in the aggregate over a 2-week period. For reason 5, employees taking leave are entitled to pay at 2/3 their regular rate or 2/3 the applicable minimum wage, whichever is higher, up to $200 per day and $12,000 in the aggregate over a 12-week period. And then there are some footnotes. I'm not going to read those for you. Again, I'm going to link this article down in the description below. So again, a lot of your employers may have been closed these past couple of months while we were all on stay-at-home orders, and there's a lot in the CARES Act. So it's possible that your employer doesn't know about this program. So you want to talk to them, keep the lines of communication open, ask them how many employees are in the company. They are required by law to post like one of those bulletin notices in your break room or in a common area where everyone will see it so that they know that this is something that they'd be eligible for. And your employer is prevented from retaliating against you if you ask for these benefits. I think the hardest part is probably going to be determining if your company has more than 500 employees or less. So that could be something that you're up against. And again, there was a part in there about giving your employer reasonable notice if you know that your child's school is going to be closing or daycare isn't available. You know, jobs are going to be hard to get once all of this is over. So everything that you can do to ensure that once you do find childcare that your employer takes you back, I just think will benefit you in the long run. Again, that's just my opinion. But if you're able to keep a good relationship with your employer by still having your needs and your children's needs met, I just think that that's the best avenue to go. I hope this video has been helpful in helping you determine what the right decision for you is when you decide if you're able to go back to work and you still have children in the home that you need to care for. And as always, if you're interested in getting 2 free stocks, one of which could be valued up to $1,400, I'm going to leave my Webull link down below. I really do like that platform. I also really like Robinhood, and if you just link your bank account, you get 1 free stock, which could be valued up to $500. Thank you so much for watching Shelly's Millions. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time.